I love Victoria 3. Victoria 3 is a game that needs a lot of love, a lot of content, a lot of DLC, and right now, I'm just going to be giving you my thoughts on this. This is the fundamental question. And what is the fundamental question? What is Victoria 3 missing? What does it need? And how can we, as a community, help Paradox fix it? And let's say to Paradox, guys, please fix and develop and expand on what is a fantastic game. Right now, with the current Voices of the People's DLC, there is a lot of content that is still missing. Now, of course, it has great events, great artwork, it has introduced a lot of new features, historical agitators. But the main problem of the DLC is that most Paradox fans are saying, okay, so you gave me France and you gave me a whole bunch of events that are related to France. But why don't I have the same with Spain, with the Austrian Empire, with Italy? Why is there no historical unification of Italy? Why is there no big Royal Navy mission tree or something? Why is there no establishment of the Italian Royal Navy? Things like these that need more content. And yet, at the very same time, I want to just say this. I think Victoria 3 is a game that just needs more content, more DLC, more developing of its main mechanics. And yes, I would definitely say that for someone who will love spreadsheets, this is a ultimate dream, because you can track every single thing of your economy, your population, your food, your every single aspect. But at the very same time, these mechanics feel underdeveloped. Underdeveloped in the sense that they just need more content in them. So what are the features that I would introduce? What are the things that I would introduce? First of all, let's talk about the laws. The laws in this game are very anti and very pro. So you pass a law that doesn't really benefit you when you have to progress in the Victorian era, but then you pass the very same law that does the opposite of it. And what I'm calling for is historical laws. A DLC, a free DLC or content or whatever update that basically allows you, the player, to enact historical laws that was needed to modernize your country. Or you could still be able to pass that very same law that would be a disbenefit to your country. At the very same time, let's take France in 1870. France was about to pass a law, or reform, whatever you want to call it. And they passed this law so that they would be able to reform the French army. But of course that never happened in real history because the French parliament voted it down just before the war with Prussia. Now imagine if that military reforms had been allowed to be taken. What would the French military have been able to do? I don't think, maybe not too much, but it would have done significant more damage to the Prussian army. What if you have a law, or let's tie this to technologies, okay? Say you do the technology research of ironclads, and suddenly you have this impending reform. And this impending reform is, should you upgrade all your ships to metal, or should you keep your ships with wooden, with wood, and you can modify it to a degree, but you will still be at a disadvantage when it comes to other European powers or other, let's say, different powers that are going to be taking the lead. Why don't we have something like that? And if you, say for example, if you're losing money and you can't afford it for your navy, then what happens is you might get the agitators, the revolutions, because you basically want your navy to be the best. Your navy can't be just simply below the standard of other navies, right? Is that not something you'd want? Would not the public have their opinion? Does the People's DLC, does it have laws? Does it have, what would you call it? Does it have these features? Yes, it does. But most of the events, most of the reactions toward laws, toward revolutions, they are generic. They're not specific enough. Like you're talking about the Bourbon monarchy in France. There should be way more events and dilemmas that are tied to the French monarchy that show the growing dislike of the Bourbon monarchy, that show that the army doesn't really approve of the Bourbon monarchy. In fact, there's no specific event like let's say in 1840 when Napoleon returns to France. No, there's nothing for his funeral. That's what needs to be added. But am I saying that Victoria 3 is a failure? No. I think Victoria 3 definitely has more potential. There are people still playing this game. I don't think Victoria 3 is a failure. I don't want it to become another Victoria. Well, sorry, not Victoria, but Imperator. I don't want it to become that. I think this game already has a huge amount of potential, and I saw and I read the developers and heard what they were saying, that the next 2 DLCs will be adding, let's say, a day-night cycle, which I think is a really underrated feature. Okay. And they were also saying, look, that this DLC already adds a lot more events, etc. I agree with them. Oh, here's what I'm saying, the paradox. If I play Spain, if I play the Austrian Empire, if I play Great Britain, they should all be different. There should be specific technologies related to each nation. What prevented the Austro-Hungarian Empire from becoming strong? It was because its military had 100 different nationalities, okay? 100 different nationalities, 100 different loyalties. Of course, the Austrian military definitely practiced in German. They all spoke German in some form or the other. That's amazingly what held the Austro-Hungarian Empire to be quite a strong empire, even despite the fact that it didn't suffer that many great victories during World War I. Well, it didn't suffer from victory disease. Now, when I mean suffer, I said it wrong. I meant that it didn't get that many victories. But here's the thing. There's a fantastic mod right now that's just been released, which is Timber and Steel, which focuses on the naval aspect of Victorian 3. Right? We need more mechanics like this, Paradox. Why don't I have mechanics of economic simulation? Yes, the economic simulators are there. You can look at what you're exporting. You can cancel export or trade routes. You can definitely build and spam buildings. You can add and expand, let's say, trade routes or whatever. But you can't do much else. You can look at your budget and see what you're spending, but that's about it. Why don't we have a yearly budget where you decide here's what you can do and here's what you can't do? Why don't we have a Wall Street type of mechanic? Why don't we have the gold standard? Why don't we have more inflationary mechanics? If we print out too much money, then how is that going to impact our military? If our military, here's one thing, and I've noticed this, that yeah, sure, you have the military and that's taken up a lot of your navy, that's taken up a lot of your upkeep, it's taking a lot of your GDP. Basically, the more you spend on military, the more you don't have enough to spend on buildings. And this is something I don't get, right? The most powerful nations during this time had more than enough money to spend on the military, and they could still keep it, right? Sure, they had to do cutting where it was needed. But the military and the strong navy are two of the most important things a nation state would need in Victoria 3 in order to succeed. Now let's take the French Navy in 1870, right? The French Navy was essentially built to basically go and defeat as many big navies as it could. But each and every time it went to the Prussian border or the Prussian coast, they couldn't effect a naval blockade, because they were far away from, let's say, France, and they didn't have most of the supplies needed. Sure, they could go to Denmark, but there were times when the Prussian Navy would just simply go and basically outwit the French. And the Prussian Navy only had like 7 ships or something. 6 to 7 ships, right? So why don't we add features like that? Why don't we add features that allow the implementation of naval warfare, in an age of steam? If you want to, let's build this. Let's say we have ocean liners. So why don't I have multiple companies coming to me to build these ocean liner ships? Why don't I, as the French, build the grandest ocean liner known to mankind? Why don't I have that visual aesthetic? Why don't we bring elements from Railroad Tycoon, Anno 1800? Why don't we bring these events in, well, at least the mechanics or so, into this game? Why don't we build this thing? Now some would say, yeah, but this game isn't meant to be a railway simulator, a shipping line simulator, otherwise you could have a different game for it. I'm saying, if you add these features in, I believe it could be more fun, it could be more enjoyable. In fact, why don't I have, let's say I want to build a train route from Marseille to Lyon. Okay, and from that train route, I then basically have 5 companies bidding me, and they give me their projects, and which project will be the one that I decide will be able to complete on time. And even if those projects don't succeed, it could basically cost me money, right? So why don't we have something like that? A real life example would be many train projects for today. You have contractors, you have bidders, you have the government, you have all of them involved, and they're making decisions here and there, right? So why don't we have something like that? In fact, what if in diplomacy, why don't we have this feature called build a railway network? So I could establish with the Ottomans, that's the French, that I want to build a train route from Paris all the way to Constantinople, or all the way to Vienna, right? This would be build a military railway network if you have really good relations, or build a civilian railway network that would mean like trains like the Orient Express, or build a trade railway network that would basically allow you to trade, XYZ, right? The railways of Europe were really interconnected, and during 1870, of course, before 1870, Napoleon III embarked on an ambitious railway network, and this is something that really needs to be done. Why don't we also have features that allow you to redevelop your cities, to give your cities more sanitation, more etc., right? Would that not be good? Why don't we add these features? Why don't we add more military reform? Because a lot of the things I'm mentioning are sort of buried when you go and research technologies to unlock these benefits for your country. But I'm saying, tie it, interconnected. If I pass a law on freedom of the press, okay, I shouldn't just pass a law that says, okay, now I'm going to restrict freedom of press, because the transition from autocracy to democracy to oligarchy to, the transition is not clear. This is where the politics system needs work. Sure, I have these political parties, but I don't participate in elections. I don't even choose the political parties. I don't get a list of candidates for each political party and then I decide that this person is this. I don't even get to do that much. All I know is I can reform the government, and these people don't want to work with each other, and I get some dilemmas where these people do this, and this. The political system needs more changes. It needs to be more functional. The political system is good, but it just needs more. I don't even... Now, when I say about transitioning, if I lose my monarchy, then I can just transition to go and support the revolutionaries. In the meanwhile, I can slowly build up the monarchy back again to make sure that they get back in power, right? So why am I not getting these things? Why am I not getting that? Why am I not getting something that will basically say, yeah, you can do this thing and you can do this thing? There should be a systematic route of how you start from the bottom and how you go up in politics, or vice versa. Because that's what, you can't do these things in the People's DLC, but you can only do it to a limited extent. What I'm saying is expand upon these mechanics. If I do trade routes, maybe I might get a message from Austria saying, we really like this, so let's say 10 plus in relations improved, right? And why am I not getting more resources from the colonies? I would really want more of that. There's no missions to the Antarctic. There's no missions to, let's say, expand shipping lines. There's no dilemmas to build. Why don't I get a message saying the White Star Line company has built the Cunard ocean liners, so we as France can do it. But we could either face opposition or we could face this. That's what's needed. And back to the point of this. Historical laws would really be something good. And it's really fantastic that other nations can bankroll other nations. But it's not enough that it puts you under the burden of theirs. Meaning that if I play as the Ottomans and I get a French to bankroll me, okay, I should really feel the weight of it. I need to feel that this is really specific, because the French are telling me what I need to cut and what I need to invest. And therefore, the local population doesn't like that because they're losing more of their income, right? So it's stuff like this. We need Wall Street. We need gold. We need elements of real life economics. We don't need a whole economic simulator. We don't need too much. What we need is just enough to basically go in, and yes, it will make you feel deep and in-depth. Now, these are paradox games. Games like these demand complexity. Games like these demand even more simulation of economics, of gameplay, etc. This is what you're playing. Basically, if this wasn't Total War, this is what Total War would be, right? Total War without the battles. Imagine that, right? This isn't what Total War is. But now, what you will be getting, I believe, is that you need more deals. You need at least, let's say this, Rise of the Fives DLC. Okay, what does that DLC give you? That DLC gives you Japan, Korea, the Qing Empire, etc. But it basically gives you the westernization mechanic, which basically means all the political leaders, whether they are for against westernization and or for, they realize they need to modernize. They do. But there are some that just do not want it, right? There's also the politics of the Boshin War. You have the Japanese incursions. You have much more mechanics. In fact, you could have a mechanic where all the three nations, they curry favor. They have favor with the European powers, right? So Japan goes to Great Britain for the expansion of its navy, right? But in Korea, this would be an alarming thing, of course. But what held Korea back? What held the Qing Empire back? Its ministers. Because those ministers, they didn't want innovation. They basically wanted that let the nation be as it is. We don't want to reform. And you can have that as a mechanic. There should be more dilemmas. There should be 50 to 100 dilemmas focusing specifically on each nation. This would be a lot of content, right? This would be a lot. But when I'm playing Japan or when I'm playing France, I can't tell too much difference. I can now tell with France to a degree, but not too much. But if I'm playing the Austrian Empire should have its own specific set of challenges, own specific set of distractions. That should basically, I don't need to go to another nation state or whatever, because in Victoria 3, is this an economic simulator? Is this a game with deep political mechanics? Is this a game where I can decide the outcome of elections? Is this a game where I can enact historical laws? Is this a game where I can dictate warfare to a degree where I find warfare to be absolutely enjoyable? Can warfare be reformed? Why is the naval aspect of Victoria 3 missing? Because there's so much more you could do with the naval aspect, from military to civilian. There's so much. And quite frankly, at the end of the day, this is just an exhaustive list. I could go on and on and on forever. I've tried to record this video at least 4 to 5 times, and this is my maybe 6th or 7th attempt. This is my final attempt. But here's what I'm trying to say. This game can be fixed. This game needs changes in warfare, and I want changes to visual representation of what warfare looks like. If I'm blockading, if I'm doing a naval battle, if I'm doing a naval blockade, I want to see ships actually blockading, ships actually firing. I want to see trains transferring troops from one end of the region to the other. This was something that happened. How were troops mobilized in World War I? Through the railways. And if the railways can't be used, you can use a whole line of taxis, right? This does extend to World War I, does it not? Why don't we also have an espionage DLC, where basically you can establish a spy network across nations, military, economic, or civilian. You can force recessions, you can trigger rebellions, you can basically destroy a nation by buying out its shares, or you can destroy a nation economically by pushing up the prices on, let's say, champagne or whatever, right? It's these type of features that could be added. And a spy network, I don't know why this hasn't been added in yet. You could send military attaches to navies. You could send military attaches to warfare to reflect on how wars are being fought. Why don't we have American Civil War? Why don't we have all these historical events? One of the things that plagues me about this game is that a lot of the historical events, historical forming of nation states, it's not there. It's ahistorical, and I need some historical accuracy. And also, just to my point on the transitioning, even a king should be able to abdicate. A prime minister should be able to abdicate if a ruling government in power has basically lost favor. They don't trust the government, and they therefore vote to trigger a coup and transform the government into something else, right? There should be political mechanics for this. Prime Minister, King, President should be able to abdicate. And once you abdicate, you then get to play the other political party and see how their mechanics are. Political transitioning should be different. If I play an oligarchy, all its mechanics should feel different, right? If I play a republic, then it should be different from a monarchy, right? The basic powers of stopping mobs and enforcing discipline, that will remain, of course, because that was a feature of this time, right? What if the trains go on strike? What if, to a degree, I would say that the People's Voices DLC, it does go to it. It does extend it to a degree, but it doesn't go enough. All of these features should be in the politics tab. It shouldn't be just laws and politics or whatever. It should be laws, politics, enforcement, and even if you pass a law, even if you pass, let's say you pass a law, it shouldn't be that I just pass one law to restrict myself and then I pass another law to basically prevent the very restriction of that in the first place. That needs changing. So there needs to be more changes. What we have, I think, is satisfactory, but there is more content. And all I say to Paradox is this: there's definitely more to fix, there's definitely more to add, there's definitely more to do. So why don't you add stuff like this? I'm just an average Joe. You could go to the Reddit forum right now, and all the brilliant Victoria 3 fans that support this game, I commend them, because they're still supporting this game. They're giving their love. Even if they don't like the DLC, they're still saying, you know what, we'll put our trust and we'll say to Paradox, let's go and fix it at least. You can fix that, Paradox. I don't want another Imperada. All I'm saying is, you guys can fix this. You guys can add more content. There's no excuse for it. Add more content. Because there aren't that many games that really do experience the Victorian era. I go into this one detail. You have the railroad tycoons, but what you don't have is a game that basically packages it all in one. Imagine if Victoria 3 had a railway simulator, like mechanics, economic simulator, let's say the train simulator, right? One of the things I would love is a railway DLC. Completely irrelevant, but I would love to see the different looks of different locomotives onto this campaign map. I'd love to see steam trains and so many things. In fact, in America, you could have a DLC called Railways of the West, right? They go all the way to 1936, right? So you could see the evolution of, locomotives into these steam locomotives, etc. You could have so much more. I'd love to see that type of stuff. Seriously. But anyway, this has been my video. These are my thoughts, and I want to know, what do you think is missing from Victoria 3 and how Paradox can fix it? What do you think needs to be fixed? What should be added in? I could go on forever, but if you come to this far, to the end of this video, I first of all thank you. Thank you so much for listening to my ramble of thoughts. But what do you want to see? Let's talk about it. I want to see what you say in the comment section down below, and I'll respond to each and every comment that there is. I want to see what you think. So don't forget to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I shall see you on the next video.